Yes? Yes? Send a
Yes,
thumbs
ma'am.
up in the chat. Great, awesome. So the lab investigation, the introduction. So the terrarium is a miniature garden in a glass bowl or jar. So in this lab, is basically that you're going to replicate the water cycle by creating the terrarium. So it's a closed terrarium. So people have open terrariums or closed ones. That means that it's in a jar and it's completely closed. There's no air going in or out. However, the hope is that even though there's no air going in or out, it should be able to sustain itself, because there have been instances where people have built these terrariums and they have been thriving and flourishing for decades. Sometimes you go into the forest and you find a jar and there's a mini ecosystem in it that is still self-sustaining. So the materials, you need a clear glass jar with a lid, with a lid. If not, you could probably get like some wax paper and get a rubber band and kind of cover it. You need 1 or 2 small plants. You need a bottle cap. You need soil, sand, or I used mesh because I didn't have any sand, and some small rocks. So the amount of soil and sand and rocks depend on the size of your jar, and you have to just kind of lay it. So the first thing you do, I'll show you all a video too. So don't worry if you can't imagine it right now. So place a layer of small rocks in the bottom of your jar. So that's the first thing you're gonna do. So I did a little bit of that. So mine isn't, let me turn on my camera. So my terrarium is not that great. Don't laugh at me, but I don't know if you can see very well here. But I have a little bit of gravel at the bottom here. Okay, this blue thing, you're probably wondering what it is. It's a little bit of mesh. So let me see. So you're placing your rocks at the bottom of the jar. Then you're gonna cover the rocks with a layer of sand, right? So basically the layer of sand kind of acts like a mesh for filtering it and kind of creates like a separation between the gravel and the soil. So I didn't have any sand. So I saw some people, they say you use some form of mesh, so non-biodegradable mesh, so that way it stays fine. So I did in fact put a little bit of mesh here. You can see it. I have a little bit of mesh on acting as the sand layer. And then you're gonna transplant the plants. So I got so okay, you can't see it. I don't know if I can be clear from it. So the section of soil that I took up had a bit of fine moss plants growing on it. So, and I read that moss plants tend to grow well in terrariums. So you're seeing I'm already seeing the life cycle at work in here. I don't know if you're seeing this drop of water. So it might look kind of cloudy and foggy right now, but soon enough you'll see the purpose of it. Okay. And you're gonna just place it and you're gonna fill the bottle cap with water and bottle cap with water and place a little bit of water in the soil. You can't waterlog the soil. You have to just use a little bit of water because the plan is that it will be self-sustaining, okay? And you put the terrarium in a sunny place and you're observing it for a week, right? So you're trying to notice the difference in parts of the water cycle, and you're gonna record the observations in a data table. This is your data table, right? So this is the results. Day 1, you're gonna say what you observed. If you notice anything, it doesn't have to be anything long. You could put like two to 3 sentences of what you observe about your terrarium. Same thing for day 2, day 3, day 4. And then you have just a few discussion questions. You are going to summarize the results of the lab investigation. So what happened from each day, just a quick summary of it. So you don't have to repeat everything, but you say, okay, from day 1 to 3, you realize that this, something happened, a lot of condensation was on the walls of the jar, etc. And then you explain how this demonstrates the water cycle. So you're just explaining what you're seeing. So you're summarizing what you saw for question 1 and question 2. You can relate your terrarium to the water cycle, okay? And then in number 3, you're gonna explain the role that decomposers play in your terrarium, okay? Because all ecosystems have to have decomposers, right? So let me take a second. Let me show you a video of someone doing it. So I'm gonna stop the share and turn off my camera for a bit. I'm gonna find the video of the person building the terrarium. Okay, let me see, is this it? Just a second, guys. I had the video saved and I'm not seeing him now, the person terrarium. So guys, terrarium, the terminology, where it comes from. A terrarium is similar to what? And what's the other type of thing? We replace terror with another name.
A habitat.
It is a habitat, but what's another type of rium? So if you take out the Terra, and you add another word starting with an A to it, it's the way you put fish when you have it in the house.
Aquarium.
Aquarium. So that's similar. So if you have an aquarium and then this is a terrarium, basically, which is a self-sustaining terrestrial ecosystem. Okay, so I'm gonna show you a video. I'm gonna share my screen now though. Let me show you. Share screen. Share some. Okay. So you all saw what he did, most of you all? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so you see what he did is that he built a terrarium. Now my terrarium don't look as fancy and as nice because I think I want to get a larger jar. So this is just to show for me to see how it works. But I think soon enough, I'm going to get, let me turn on my video. I'm going to get a larger jar. So my jar is a small one. And I think what I'm going to get is some charcoal instead and some sand instead of the mesh. So it looks more natural and nice. I have a friend, she's really good at these terrariums. She makes them open so air could come in and thing. But she makes some very pretty terrariums. So I'll probably get her to help me. But you all understand the premise of it. So I'm gonna go and share a little bit of a lab talk I have planned about terrariums. And then after that, I will give you, it is 12:30 now, so I should finish about 12, well, 12:45 for me, so 11:45 for you. I'm gonna give you all about 20 to 30 minutes to try to make a terrarium. How many of you all have a glass jar? Any of you all have materials or no?
Miss,
Or
I have some.
you have
Well, I
some?
may have some materials, but for the glass jar and the sand, I don't think I have those.
You don't have to have the sand because I didn't have sand and I just kind of improvised. So if you could get some gravel and some soil with the, so I picked up a tufter soil with, I don't want to open it because I'm already seeing the water cycle working for my jar. So I don't want to open it and mess it up basically. But the section, my mom recently cut the grass. You were there on Monday when the guy came to cut the grass. So so these are just some more, there's some moss that's growing in the top there. So that's what I got. So I just got a section of that. So I over time and every few days we could probably check in and see how it's growing. So I'm gonna give you a little time and see if you find some more specimens. You don't have the glass jar, but she could get one later today. That's no problem. So I'm still gonna give you a little time to if you all could find some specimens after I do the session, and you all could start to put it together, and you all could send a photo either later today or tomorrow or maybe Friday. Friday you'll have more time to do it. So I'm going to start to share the lab introduction so you'll have a better idea of why we're doing this. All right. So slideshow. Oh, let me see what's in the chat. Slideshow from beginning. Okay, terrarium, a self-sustaining, or I should have said closed terrariums because there are open terrariums where air and everything can come in, but we are working with closed terrariums. And some people make their terrariums so pretty and fancy and nice. And I think I want one of these. My thing is why I don't like to keep plants, especially in my room. I feel like they encourage insects and other organisms that I don't want around in the same place that I sleep. But I think a closed
You're saying
terrarium.
that, and
Huh?
I have 4 plants in my bedroom right now.
Oh gosh, sorry, but that's one of the things I have like a little fear. People love plants and plants apparently like help to boost your mood as well. It's like persons who suffer with depression and live in cold countries as well. I remember they saying that they try to always have plants around and also to help and like they get like a sunlight lamp in especially people who migrate to Canada. So we love a lot of people love plants, but I don't know. I'm just a very paranoid person. I love nature but I like nature outside. I like when nature's outside. But I think a terrarium would be the perfect, I guess something perfect for me so that it's closed and it's sustaining itself and I don't have to worry about watering it. But at the same time, it's nice to look at and it could be very soothing to your mind. So we're trying to build a self-sustaining closed terrarium. A closed terrarium, okay? So a closed terrarium, it usually has plants that's totally enclosed within the container, right? So this kind of ensures that it maintains a slightly higher temperature than the one outside. So it will tend to be hotter in that container than outside of the container, right? And so what contributes to the terrarium being able to function as it does, rather, because the closed terrarium's atmosphere is warmer than the outside environment, all the water that evaporates, like from the soil, and also evaporates just from the plants sometimes, and when anything that evaporates from the ecosystem tends to condense, just like it condenses into the clouds and forms clouds, and then rain will fall in our natural environment. Likewise, that's what happens. So as soon as you realize it gets the jar will start to get a little foggy, and then you realize water starts to kind of form on the inside of the glass, and it condenses, and then it starts to fall back into the soil and it waters, right? So it kind of waters itself. So it's a cycle. And we all know that light is necessary for photosynthesis to occur. Yes, yes. Is light necessary for photosynthesis to occur? I think everyone will say yes. And because of that, that's why we're asking for a glass container, so that way light can get into the ecosystem. So if it was a dark container or a container that is kind of opaque, it's not as much light is able to come in, right? So we need light that's easy to pass through, so that it could ensure that the plants photosynthesize. And then the cycle repeats itself over and over and over. And that's why it makes the terrarium self-sustaining. So that's why you could see, I remember I was mentioning to you that sometimes you will go in the forest and some people like bounce up a jar that's completely closed, but the terrarium is thriving. They will see, like, all the plants, you see some earthworms, some nematodes, all these different things in the soil that's still thriving, and it's been closed for multiple years. So open terrariums, however, they will need to be watered from time to time, because remember, unless the rain is falling, it probably wouldn't get water. It is self-sustaining. So a closed terrarium is considered a complete ecosystem, right? Because it deals with the plants in the environment, which is the container, and there's no outside influence other than the light coming in through the glass walls. And this is rightly so, because if you consider the planet, right? If you consider planet Earth, that's basically how it operates, right? So the terrarium basically works similarly to how our Earth operates, because the outside, we don't get anything from space. Space doesn't put anything into the Earth, really, right? Apart from we get the sunlight from space, and we could see the stars and all of that. We could see on the outside, but it's not like we get in water from space, we get in anything else from space apart from sunlight, right? So that's the same way the terrarium works. So the sun comes into the terrarium, but other than that, it sustains itself. It cycles its own nutrients. If an animal dies, if some people put earthworms in their terrarium, so when that earthworm dies of natural causes, it will decompose and it will filter its nutrients back into the ecosystem. Not so? So you have your water cycle, your nitrogen cycle, your oxygen cycle. Because why we have oxygen? What's producing the oxygen in the terrarium? Tell me. Somebody answer quick. Post it in chat or unmute your mic. What produces the oxygen in a terrarium? Because ecosystems need oxygen. So what produces, what ensures that there's oxygen? Anyone? I'm waiting in the chat. Someone can unmute their mic. Let me hear.
The plants.
The plants, precisely that, because the plants release the oxygen, and that's what ensures that that ecosystem keeps thriving. So there is oxygen in the terrarium, and that's why it's able to cycle within itself. And then there is rain, because when the water evaporates, it condenses on the jar, and then it will just kind of slowly trickle down the sides of the jar and add back to the soil. So the soil never dries, never really dries out. Yeah, some more images. So you can see it here. So the first thing is actually they usually want you to have a bit of a drainage layer. Okay, so this is where you have a lot of gravel and activated carbon. So what happens is that they want to create kind of like a mesh between the gravel and the carbon, so that way when the water could trickle down, and the soil doesn't get overly saturated, because when it gets overly saturated, it will start to kind of smell bad, and the ecosystem mightn't function as it should, And then you have you have the drainage layer. So that's where when the water trickles through the soil, you have the drainage layer. So kind of think of it as like an aquifer. And then little by little, the water will go back up into the plants when the plants start taking up water from the roots. And then you're gonna have your growing medium, which is like potting soil. And then you're gonna have like peat moss, some nice little plants. Some people put little like gnomes in their little knickknacks. So this is usually how it works. And if you could get, so if you get a small jar, it could work. If you get a large jar, it could work as well. Okay, it doesn't really matter the size. You can make your terrarium depending on the size that you have, size of jar you have. The same thing, this one, same thing. You have some rocks at the bottom, some charcoal, and then some potting soil and some plants. I see a little gnome there. That's the little gnome. So I think that's it for my session, my section of this. So I want you all to go off and try to build a terrarium, or even, and guess what, if you don't have the, if you have the glass jar now, I say go ahead and build your terrarium. If not, here's what I want you to do. I want you to take this time and plan your terrarium. So same thing, I have a friend, remember the friend I told you about who is really good at terrariums. Sometimes if she wants to build a new unique looking terrarium, she will take her time and draw it out. So imagine the size of jar that you want and what materials you will want to get. And I want you to get a sheet of paper and sit and start drawing out the shape of your jar, showing what layers, if you could get the proper measurements of the jar as well. If you say the jar is going to be 10 inches tall, so I want 1.5 inches of rocks, and then that 1/2 inch of charcoal, and then 2 inches of potting soil. I want you to kind of take your time and section it out if you don't have the materials, right? Because I know how it is. So sometimes you don't have everything readily available. So that's what I'm going to encourage you to do. Let me go back on Zoom itself. Let me stop sharing. So you all understand, you all want me to keep up the, which one you all want me to keep up? You all should have the lab. Do you want me to keep up one of these slides with the buttons, with the layers? Tell me. Diraj, what you think? Diraj, you have materials? Diraj? Okay, I'm not here. Okay.
Miss, if we have the materials, can we start making it?
Yes, if you have the materials, definitely start making it. If you don't, I want you to take your time and start drawing out how you want to build your terrarium. So if you have the materials, start immediately, right? Because that's what the lab is supposed to be, right? You're supposed to do it during the schedule time. So if you don't, I want you to take your time and draw out how you plan to build your terrarium. And I still want to see the terrariums, so I'll just give you all probably until like Friday or maybe the weekend to get all your materials. There's not a lot of stuff. I got everything in my yard basically. So I'm going to encourage you to do that. Anyone else have questions? We all want me to continue sharing my screen and share the layers so you all can see. No one's answering, but I'll share it nevertheless. Okay, so Leah says yes, please. Awesome. So I'm going to share this image. I think this image looks the best from current slide. So I'm going to keep this up. I'm going to run into Zoom quickly. I'm going to stop in my video in the meantime, and I'm going to put it on mute. It is now 12:41. So I will be coming back on at 1:10 to see how you all have progressed. And you all could start to, as they say, you could send photos in the chat, or you can send me, you can actually show me your terrariums, okay? So I'm sharing it. So I'm gonna mute my mic now, and I'm giving you all 1/2 an hour. You all can, I'll be here too, so you all can ask me questions. If you post in the chat, I will see it. So you all can message me directly in the chat, or unmute your mics and say, you know, Miss, I have a question. Miss, I want to say something. Hi everyone, I'm back. Let me see if you're here. Who's here? Who's here still? I see Daraj disappeared.